Have you ever wondered what happens when a sophisticated cat and a goofy dog are fused together as conjoined twins? Stick with us as we explain the Catdog series from start to end in detail.
A cat dog, alone in the world was a little cat dog.
Well, the fans have their bizarre theories, and the funny part is that all of them are borderline creepy and uncomfortable. However, there's one that makes the most sense, and that's that Catdog are literally a product of some sort of nuclear disaster. Honestly, even if you look at the city in which Catdog live, the main setting of the show, Nuremberg, it seems a bit odd. Wiggly woggly buildings, odd misty environment, and everything is almost deformed. Probably the place went through something similar to Chernobyl, and the fact that Nuremberg almost always seems deserted throws more food to the fire. Seems too far-fetched? Well, leave your skepticism at the door because there seems to be a lot to support this theory.
Hey, you Catdog! Never mind.
In one of the episodes, we even see the show's main antagonist, Rancid Rabbit's Rusty Krusty cereal factory. The cereal is literally named Cavity Crunch and is green in color. Not just that, but his factory seems to produce its green retch-worthy batter from complete garbage. Plus, the surroundings of the factory are totally polluted. Seeing all this, it's clear that normal health and hygiene rules don't apply to Nuremberg. Probably because it was abandoned by authorities, thanks to the nuclear accident. Also, have you noticed that almost all the residents of Nuremberg are extremely odd? Some of them are not even proper animals or humans, but literally creepy humanoids. Like Cornelius Sunshine, all these years, and I still can't decipher what this creature is. These creatures also act really weird and erratic. Crazy behaviors seem to be the normal in Nuremberg. Side effect of the accident, maybe? So it's pretty clear that Catdog aren't the only ones who can be the product of radiation. They even have strange abilities like how they are able to stretch hilariously too far than it's logically possible. And it's not the only ability they have. We even see Dog has some type of wolf tendencies in him. So when the moon reaches its full moon phase, Dog seems to develop aggressiveness and wants to be more than just a cat dog. He has vivid dreams of a separate wolf version of himself scurrying through a creepy dark forest and howling when the moon's full. Perhaps there's even a wolf mutated with them, just not physically, and is manifested mostly within Dog instead of cat. To add even more of a cool twist to this theory is the assumption that maybe Rancid Rabbit is not just an annoying enemy to Catdog, but an assigned observer to Catdog's strange mutation. That's right, the fact that this guy ridiculously owns almost every business in Nuremberg supports that he's well-funded, and some even speculate that his ears aren't even real, but are radio extensions through which he communicates or gets instructions. I mean, in some of the episodes, he's talking to himself, so this could be legit. Not just him, even Lola, one of the more sane characters in the series, seems to be quite educated and sharp for Nuremberg's crazy residents. Plus, she's a zoologist and has a close connection to Catdog. No wonder she can possibly be studying them all along. The theory even tries to explain how Catdog uses the bathroom. Let's be honest, it's the point where tons of disgusting theories come in, and let's just not go there. But according to the nuclear theory, because of the radiation, Catdog might have no excreting organs at all, and they tend to fully digest everything they eat.
That was unbelievable!
But while the origin of the Catdog can only be explained with theories, the series does give some sort of closure, and when it's revealed that Catdog did in fact have parents after all. And hilariously, it's a Sasquatch and a frog. Weird, right? But I promise it makes sense as the events unfold. Well, Catdog had no idea who their parents were or if they even existed, though Dog had some inside wish to reunite with her parents, but Cat wasn't really over the moon to solve the big mystery. However, when the Parents' Day Fair was held at Nuremberg, Dog went all out with his crazy theories regarding where their long-lost parents could be. Poor him firmly believed they were looking for them. But you know what? Inside his heart, even Cat missed their parents. I mean, the guy literally had a secret room under his bed, and guess what was in it? A pacifier in his blankie from his kitty days. So when the two of them learned that the old open chuck is due to erupt in the next 24 hours, and even Winslow, their best friend, affirms that they were found years ago in the same area, Cat immediately agrees to set off. Throughout the whole trip, the two of them come across some pretty odd encounters. Like they even found a place where aliens were returning people's parents. I swear, it's a very odd scene with the parents being rolled out on a conveyor belt all dazed and weird. And then this monster named Bessie literally swallows them, all because Dog had this bright theory that their parents were also somehow swallowed by Bessie and were in its stomach. Well, they'd be digested by now, dude. Nevertheless, these guys made it alive out of the monster's sizzling digestive juices and end up in the town of Yokelberg, home to the McDogs and Catfield's cat. They were two clans of cats and dogs celebrating the peace between them. Their Catdog eventually had some hope when they found a resembling pair of cat and dog named Dog McDog and Pussycat Catfield. But I guess luck wasn't in their favor as they turned out to be Lubes, one of the greaser dog's parents. I know what you might be thinking, that's a very inappropriate name. Nonetheless, their adventure continued and they eventually arrived at Old Up and Chuck. Unfortunately, all they found were piles of rocks, which finally crushed Dog's hopes. But little did he know they were moments away from solving the mystery. Suddenly, as the volcano erupted, a huge blue Sasquatch with 4 eyes came to their rescue. At first, Catdog totally freaked out, thinking they were kidnapped by this furry creature, but soon they realized 2 of the eyes belonged to a tiny green frog. To add to the weirdness, the Sasquatch frog duo claimed to be their parents. Cat was visibly worried, trying to wrap his head around this bizarre revelation until the Sasquatch and frog clarified that they had simply found them on a cliff and adopted them. So the true origin story and the birth of Catdog is still a mystery. The strange couple revealed that they had lost them when a vortex snatched the 2 away, and the mom Sasquatch even put out the other end of the pacifier that Cat had in his secret room. The family actually ends up on a good note when the same vortex opens up and the whole of them gets swallowed and transported back to Nierberg. In the end, Catdog gets to celebrate the Parents' Day fair as the not-so-parentless duo.
Oh, Mama!
Oh, Pop!
Will this love fest never stop?
Did I mention we're your ever-loving parents?
But do you know that one of the most noticeable qualities of this show is how creepy it is? I mean, on the surface, it's just a fun kids cartoon, but the question is it really appropriate for kids? Even I at this age would be horrified by the stuff it shows. Don't believe me? Well, watch this. In one of the episodes, Catdog are having a perfectly fine evening until Dog literally drags Cat across a flea-infested sewer rat, and the payback for that crime is fleas. Yep, they get brutally infested by them, and when Cat absolutely refuses to take a dip in the anti-flea bath, the doctor, ironically Rancid Rabbit, hands them a very unfashionable anti-flea belt. Turns out fashion is important to Cat, so he pushes the belt to Dog, and definitely pays big time. The infestation worsens, reaching a point where it gives him a nightmare. He sees himself submerged in darkness literally made of fleas. Desperately, he calls to Dog for help, only to find himself not attached to Dog, but a very disturbing flea head that gives out a very demonic laugh. And it doesn't end there. After Dog finally hands over the flea belt to Cat, the fleas swarm him instead, and there's this scene where Dog's arm emerges from the swarm, only to disintegrate into a heap of fleas. The whole thing's so disturbing that it makes one scratch themselves to see if they've got an odd itch. And remember when they found their adoptive parents? Well, even that episode is nothing less than nightmare fuel. When they found these weird aliens returning the parents to people, they weren't just casually handing them out. It's really weird that the taken family members seem like they're not fully awake. One has a missing eye, another has a hole in their body and is smiling, and some seem like they're not thinking clearly, as if they are literally lobotomized. What's even worse is that the people getting their family members back don't seem to notice or care about how strange they've become. And then, when they were in Yokelberg, one of the cats from Catfield's cat literally burps full mouth at Cat, and weirdly that meant a declaration of love to them. Cat is literally forced to marry her, and they show a close-up of the female dog's mouth with her teeth coming loose. I swear it's beyond nauseating. The horror does not stop here, and there's this one episode that can be particularly distressing for people suffering from eating disorders. Well, we all know Dog loves his food, and being a natural carnivore, what's better than munching on some tender meat? Well, that was until Dog learns where the meat actually comes from and goes full-blown averse to the idea of eating such a thing. Overnight, he literally becomes a vegetarian, or should I say, not even that. He won't even eat fruits, veggies, and even stuff like rocks because he thinks they're his friends. This fear of eating his friends drives him crazy, and he starts acting all weird trying to eat Cat instead. The scene goes black and white like in scary movies and looks very eerie. And then there's this ultimate horror episode where Cat takes Dog to the dentist office because of all the garbage he eats. Once again, the dentist is none other than Rancid Rabbit, and the office itself is just a creepy mechanical nightmare. On top of that, Catdog figures out that whatever one of them does to their teeth also affects the other's teeth. So once the duo get in a fight, they start experimenting more gross things to each other's teeth, like biting on foil or using a literal blowtorch on them. Yes, a blowtorch. And if you thought that's the most horrifying this can get, you're wrong, because the ultimate horror climax comes when Cat comes out of Dog all turned inside out so he can brush Dog's teeth without waking him up to reach them better. It's enough to distress a grown human, let alone appropriate to be on children's TV. Channels were clearly not softy back then. Out of the two, Dogs is likely the dumb one, and believe me, I say that on a good note because thanks to his carelessness, he lives life unlike Cat, who is always worried and concerned with what others think of them. Meanwhile, Dog is so detached from any judgment that the dude has perfectly adopted himself to be a conjoined twin. He doesn't need privacy or me times, he doesn't complain about it, and he surely never wants to be separated at all. In his words, he loves being a cat dog. However, there is more to his personality. You see, Dog can be quite competitive. He takes great pride in being the fastest dog in town with the highest record of ripping off each and any unfortunate delivery man that ends up on their street. So much so that he literally has a wall filled with framed ripped pants, his trophies, and even pictures of the deed. However, he gets brutally challenged when one day a new mailman comes to their place. Classically, Dog makes a mad run, but before the guy can even reach to strip the dude, the mailman swiftly puts the mail in the mailbox and skedaddles. Now, that really hits Dog, and he even falls into a bout of depression reminiscing his puppy days when a paperboy had called him a slowpoke all because he couldn't get to him. Childhood trauma, I see. Well, while Dog was super down, Cat was actually happy for finally being able to receive the mail without any drama or in tatters. However, once he sees his buddy down, he couldn't help but get him back up. So he delivers quite a motivational speech that does the job, and the next time the fast and furious mailman comes by, he doesn't get away that easily. Dog literally runs after him in a cloud of dust, and once it settles, the poor mailman's pants rests between Dog's teeth. Sadly, the dude runs away crying, and turns out he's the very paperboy that had called Dog a slowpoke as a child. Ha! Who's the slowpoke now? Other than that, the dog is a massive glutton, and I'm not being sarcastic. He can literally eat anything that fits in his mouth. In the episode where he transforms into the wolf version, the greasers challenge him to gobble up a formidable pile of trash, and while it worried Cat seriously, it was no challenge for Dog. He literally inhaled the whole thing, and not just that, but once Cat begged him to lose weight for an incoming competition, and though they succeeded at first, it didn't last too long, because once Dog was at the event, he couldn't resist anymore and once again went on a crazy munching spree. However, because of his crazy shenanigans, Dog makes Cat worry way too much. Like once he literally got a craving for dinosaur bones. How on earth can that even happen? Well, it started with when Cat took Dog to the museum and the dino skeleton display seemed quite appetizing to him. Of course, the guard tells them that if they touch the bones, they'll be taken to jail in the museum. But guess what happens at night? Catdog literally finds dinosaur bones in their home, and as expected, all the fingers point towards poor Dog. They desperately try to return the bones back only to get caught and put in the museum jail. However, all this was just Cat's crazy imagination out of the back-breaking worry he had. Who knows, Dog can even do such a thing, and I won't be surprised at all. And then, on the other hand, there's Cat, the more sophisticated one out of the two. Honestly, his collectivism and calm nature is just a mask, and if you really have watched the series, you'd know that underneath he's just as erratic as Dog. Nevertheless, he's more socially aware than Dog, and also the one who's more likely to separate and be happy about it if it ever happens. But one thing about Cat is that he can be seriously greedy. Once Cat was out gardening, minding his own business, when a pesky gopher comes along and messes with his flowers. Of course, Cat wasn't happy about that and started chasing the gopher around together with Dog, when suddenly Cat spots something shiny up Dog's nose. Two shiny things, actually, and once they pull them out, Cat gets all excited thinking they're real diamonds. He literally starts digging in the ground and to his happy surprise finds even more of these shiny things. Cat's totally convinced they're diamonds, and yeah, no, diamonds are worth a lot of money, so Catdog decides to become treasure hunters. They start digging like crazy and end up with heaps of those tiny shiny things. Dog even had a favorite one he called Joey, but the next morning, there came a little problem. Joey goes missing from the group, making Dog think that Cat had swiped it. They argue and it gets messy. They tumble into carts, grab a huge diamond, and finally get flung out of the mining mess with the diamonds falling into a big hole. It's then that Dog spots Joey above the ground, safe and sound. Remember that gopher from earlier? He shows up and munches on a couple of those shiny things. Turns out he's a fan of rock candy, which is just a fancy name for those not so shiny things Catdog had been digging up all this time. Poor Cat's rich dreams come crashing down, but Dog's still super excited and goes back underground to find more rock candy because, well, he loves this stuff. Nevertheless, we all know by now that there are two main nemesis to Catdog. One of them being this group called the Greasers, made of 3 petty incel dogs: Cliff the Chad, Lube the Dumb and Dumber, and Shrek the annoying little woman of the group that has a massive crush on Dog but hides it behind her meanness. This group routinely messes with Catdog, sometimes flinging them along, annoying them, and literally bullying them. Oh, and they physically abuse them too. However, in one of the episodes, Catdog gets tired of the Greaser gang's bullying, so they decide to create a club for others who have been picked on by them. Over time, this new group, called the Geekers, start becoming just as mean and nasty as the Greasers. Like, even worse if you can believe it. What's even scarier, in real life, some street gangs began as a way to escape violence, but then they turned into violent groups themselves. It's kind of like a spooky reality check about how things can really go wrong. Just a dose of real-life horror in there. And then there's the classic rancid rabbit that somehow has a monopoly over everything in Nuremberg. Honestly, most of the time, he isn't even rude or annoying, but just scamming Catdog and others with his sketchy businesses and trying to make money. However, one thing he does is often try to propel Cat and Dog against each other and divide them. Like when they were working in his Gravity Crunch factory, he literally gave Dog the greed to become the #1 employee and get promoted from the position of a box licker. He knew Dog, being Dog, had a lot of saliva, unlike Cat, who left behind, and eventually Dog does become the #1. He gets weirdly manipulated by Rancid until things go too far and he comes to realize. But think about it. Being 24/7 with someone for the entirety of one's existence sounds pretty harsh, right? And then how do Catdog even manage that? Well, they do have their own moments of wishing for freedom as well. Like when Winslow pointed out how well Catdog worked together, but he also went on to point out how being together all the time is not that pleasing. Even twins need a break, right? This makes Cat realize that the two of them hardly, or may I say never, ever, have time for themselves, which is true. The next day's event doesn't really help Cat's train of thought either, because when they were having breakfast, Cat sees the garbage truck pull outside their house, and while it's not a big deal for a normal home, it is for a home with dogs. He panics and tries everything to distract Dog, only Dog has already seen the truck and literally dashes outside to chase it. All the while, poor Cat gets brutally dragged across, hurt by different things, and even has an encounter with the abusive Greaser's dogs. It pulls on the last of his strings, and finally Cat can't handle it anymore. He desperately wants to see what life would be like without Dog, and guess what he comes up with? Literally dressing Dog up in a costume that looks like a cat's back end. It's both hilarious and weird. Well, at first, Cat enjoys being alone, but soon he starts feeling guilty and lonely. So when the garbage truck comes again, Cat realizes he misses Dog and apologizes. Not just that, but he asks Dog to chase the truck, they make up, and Dog chases the truck, pulling a happier Cat along. However, there was this one time when the two literally got separated. It's the only time the series shows the two not attached but detached. It happened when Catdog went to see a magic show, and unlike Dog, Cat wasn't so thrilled by the magician named Amazing Ray. However, once he asked for a volunteer, Dog was the one to jump on board immediately, and guess what he performed? A detachment magic, and poof, the two were separated. Until, classically, once again, Rancid Rabbit, this time as a police officer barged in claiming that the magician had no license at all, and of course, Amazing Ray makes a run. However, that also meant Cat and Dog were not attached back. At first, Cat gets literally overwhelmed with happiness, but his little ecstasy didn't last too long, and soon he realized there were more demerits to being separated than conjoined. They literally tried everything to get back together, and when nothing worked, they had to visit the prison, only to find out that they weren't the only victims to the licenseless magician. Luckily, Amazing Ray manages to break out of prison and starts performing as a woman version of himself called Amazing Faye. That helps because Catdog managed to hunt him down and go back to being one. Only the episode ends showing they were still not attached, but we all know they somehow got together again. However, sometimes despite being conjoined, the two can be quite dismissive of each other. Like when the two of them headed to a store, their cat encouraged Dog to buy something for himself because apparently he always got only a can of beans. That's because he would literally inhale food the whole time they were shopping. Nevertheless, he decides to treat himself with a cat plushie. So much love for his conjoined twin, right? Well, that love soon turns out to not be love because things take a strange turn when Dog starts making fun of the greaser dogs while they drive by their house. He dares the tough dogs to punch Cat in the eye while playing with his plushie, and unfortunately the cat ends up with a black eye. Dog gets increasingly obsessed with the little cat doll and starts paying more attention to it than he does to Cat. He even copies everything Cat says and uses the doll as an excuse to do everything that Cat otherwise would never, like snorkeling and gliding or literally visiting the dog's club where poor Cat gets crazily beaten up. Even though Cat feels a bit left out, he really tries not to be bothered, and only when Cat gets really upset and tells Dog that he's leaving is when Dog realizes his mistake and apologizes for ignoring him. He learns his lesson and wants to make things right. But you know what? Despite all the gibberish they go through, Catdog really has some deep connection and heart for each other. This one time, once again, tired of Dog's nonsense, Cat comes across this weird ad selling bottoms. Yes, literally like it was selling customers their bottoms. And somehow that seems like a great idea to Cat, so the two head over, and of course Dog doesn't like the idea at all. At the store, Rancid Rabbit welcomes them, and Cat eventually finds his dream bottom. This worries Dog a lot, and he absolutely disagrees until they meet another customer who finds it quite fascinating that Catdog have two heads. So the deal gets done, and the three are scheduled to get replaced. But before they do so, the three head out and to get to know each other a bit better, and surprisingly, it's Cat who feels quite odd with his new behind, unlike Dog, who's having an absolute blast with his new to-be life partner. So when the gnarly moment comes and Rancid literally swings a blade, almost slicing them in half, Cat jumps out and apologizes to Dog. Of course, he returns right back to Cat, and thankfully the two realize how much they love each other.
But seriously, that was my worst idea ever.
I don't know. Remember that time you donated our spleen to science?
Please don't bring that up.
However, Catdog aren't always on their own. In fact, they live together with their friend Winslow. Honestly, a lot of sources say that Winslow is even their guardian. In fact, he was the one who had found them. Remember how he told them they were found near the old Up and Chuck? But it doesn't quite fit since the two literally treat him like anything but a guardian figure. Nevertheless, this guy's actually the most mature in the whole series and often steps in when Catdog makes quite questionable decisions. Like when they were hanging out near a dump and found a hurt cockroach. Most of us would have stomped on the thing and run away, and that would have been the end of it, but not here. Dog, being the soft-hearted guy he is, wanted to take care of it and make it better. Cat definitely didn't like the idea, but Dog begged and begged until the sun set, and Cat finally gave in. Dog was all happy and even named his new insect friend Roachy. Meanwhile, Cat wasn't exactly thrilled. In fact, he was kind of shocked by the sight of it. The thing is, Cat got pretty annoyed once Dog started spending all his time with the roach, and so he literally decided to build this robot that looked a bit like Cliff. He called it an exterminator robot and hoped it'll take care of the roach, but guess what? Roachy ends up helping Cat when the robot goes after him, and suddenly Cat started feeling all motherly and protective. Over time, the roach gets better thanks to Dog's care, but then Dog took Roachy back to the dump and let it go where it came from. Back at home, Cat and Dog got pretty sad about saying goodbye. But here's where things get a bit wild. The exterminator robot shows up again and chases them, until the robot's head opens up and reveals the clever little Winslow. Turns out he's been controlling it this whole time, trying to get rid of the pest the two had brought home, and does this little victory laugh, saying he finally got rid of the pesky cat-dog problem. Nevertheless, the series is filled with the wacky adventures Catdog. Ever heard of Cat Got 9 Lives? Well, once Cat's 8 lives literally escaped thanks to none other but Dog. That's right, what happened was that once Cat was up in the attic vacuuming, trying to clean things up, but funny enough, Dog's not a fan of the vacuum and started growling at it. So Cat then got a clever idea and told Dog to clean a part of the attic that's dusty for just 2 minutes. And guess what? Dog actually does it. However, while cleaning, he stumbled upon this weird box. Of course, Dog's curiosity gets the best of him, and he opens it up, only to find another within it. But in that one, he found 8 bottles. Here's where it gets a bit strange. He tries to take a sip from one of the bottles when suddenly Cat stops him. However, it's too late and Dog's little sip actually frees one of Cat's extra lives. You think he stopped there? Nope. The dude then literally opens the other bottles as well, letting all the extra lives fly out of their house and into the city of Nuremberg. Cat was obviously not so thrilled about this and became worried that he won't be able to survive without those extra lives. Well, things get a bit crazy in Nuremberg. These extra lives of cats start causing trouble all over the place. They steal from a grocery store, mess with other dogs, and even make a mess of cookies and milk truck, all while singing songs on power lines and causing a big electric mess. However, Catdog aren't gonna let this chaos continue. They built a machine to catch all those extra lives and started chasing them down, trying to round them up. They eventually had a run-in with an angry mob, which got pretty wild. Eventually, they figure out that the extra lives are hanging out at the fish market and manage to suck most of them back into the machine. However, here's the catch. One tricky extra life stays behind and takes Cat's place instead, and Dog's just walking around town with it, not realizing the mix-up. It makes me wonder if in all the episodes that come after this one, is Cat really the cat or just the extra life? Nevertheless, there's also this one time when Catdog had to go on an allergic adventure trying to find a way to fix Dog's erratic sneezes. He developed such a bad allergy that once the dude sneezed, it would literally send Catdog flying in the air. They even crash into Cat's sculpture. Not a great scene, so of course Cat decides to take Dog to see the doctor, and once again it's none other than Rancid Rabbit. He checks out Dog and tells him he's got allergies, and out of all the things he thinks Dog might be allergic to, cat. Like, literally, man's lived his whole life conjoined to him, and now he's developing a lethal allergy that sends the two flying? Of course, Cat doesn't buy it and tries to figure out what exactly is making Dog sneeze, only he can't quite put a finger on it. Winslow doesn't help either when he gets Dog to sneeze just by being around Cat's fur. Eventually, Cat makes Dog read a book about treating allergies, but Winslow gives him a tip instead. How about cleaning Cat's fur? A brutal idea since we all know cats hate it. As expected, as soon as Winslow tries to clean Cat, he takes off running. However, eventually they manage to give the poor thing a bath, only not even that resolves the problem and Dog starts sneezing like crazy. They try airing Cat out in the car, but that doesn't work either. In the end, they've got no choice and follow the book's advice. Dog goes for shaving Cat's fur. But of course, even that doesn't work. Dog's allergies just keep getting worse. Finally, Cat figures it out. Dog isn't allergic to him or anything he's done. Nope, it's Winslow he's allergic to. So fittingly, it's Winslow who gets the brutal shaving in the end.
Well, Dog, it doesn't get any worse than this.
So this was the entire timeline of Catdog. If you enjoyed this video, subscribe to Cartoonverse and click the bell icon for similar content.